Strange long creatures hiding under the murky waters of mysterious lakes in mildly remote places tend to crop up a surprising amount when looking for cryptid stories. Very few have such a long potential history as the Lagarfljót Wyrm, however, sightings of which may have been reported as long back as the 1300s. Various legends have popped up throughout the centuries that seem to suggest there is some sort of giant worm-like creature living in Lagarfljót Lake. While these tales vary in their description of the monster, there are a few common themes, notably the serpentine nature of the worm and its unnaturally enormous size. Lagarfljót Lake is located on the eastern side of Iceland near the town of Egilsstaðir and is the 5th largest lake in the country. Let's fly back to the 14th century and the worm's first potential documentation. The Icelandic annals of 1345 record a Lagarfljót, which translates into a strange or wonderful thing or a marvel. So this early sighting has very little actual description of the creature found in Lagarfljót Lake. Is this the same creature that has been spotted centuries later? That brings us to another question actually. As with many other cryptids, the question of whether or not this monster sighted in 1345 is the same that would eventually be sighted in 2012 is unknown. Is it the exact same organism or a descendant? If it's the same, then how on earth does it live so long? And if it's different, then how does it reproduce? Is there more than one worm living under Lagarfljót Lake? We might get some answers to those questions at the end. A couple of hundred years later, we have another piece of evidence suggesting a monster in the lake. A map engraved in 1585 includes an inscription next to Lagarfljót Lake which describes a large serpent that threatens those who live nearby and claims that the creature appears when a memorable event is about to happen. Which is a very interesting feature for a monster to have. What on earth is a memorable event? On what scale? Someone's birthday or a national crisis? Some poor kid's core memory as their friends push them into the lake? Or something that the local village is going to remember for several generations? Sorry, I know I'm getting a little carried away here, but I'm just really curious as to what this means. It was around this time that the stories of the Lagarfljót Wyrm became more common. This is not the only map that mentions a possible monster in the lake. Other maps around a similar period also mention a serpent in description of a great and giant creature living in Lagarfljót Lake. A written account of a river serpent living in Lagarfljót River appears in 1638, described as having 1 to 3 humps, seemingly rather like those very old images of serpent-like sea monsters you stereotypically see. This particular instance of the monster was credited with actually having a fairly significant impact on the land around it, being blamed for the river overflowing and causing small earthquakes in the surrounding area and surrounding houses. Fast forward another couple of hundred years, and we get the publishing of a folktale that seems to tell the origin story of this mysterious magical monster. The story goes something like this. A girl living by the lake was given a gold ring by her mother, and was told this ring had magical properties. If she were to place it underneath a health worm, more commonly referred to as a black slug, she was told this could multiply the gold and increase her fortune. This girl did so and placed the worm on top of the ring in a box. She left it there to bring her a fortune. But when she went back to check on this worm on top of the ring, it had become so large that it was threatening to burst the box wide open. Panicking, she picked up the box containing the now alarmingly large worm and threw it into the river, where it continued to grow at an alarming rate. Eventually, the monster grew to a truly monstrous size, terrorizing the locals and gaining the ability to spit poison. Certain accounts of the tale also describe 2 Finnish people, sometimes referred to as magicians, who were hired to destroy the monster and retrieve the hoard of gold underneath. They failed, but managed to chain its head and tail to the bottom of the lake. In one version of this I read, it was so difficult to kill because of a dragon that laid underneath it. Whether or not there was anything underneath the dragon is unclear. This tale raises some interesting comparisons and similarities to Norse mythology. Naturally, any serpent-like creature compared in relation to Norse mythology will be compared to Jörmungandr, the world serpent that heralds the end times. Like the story of the Lagarfljót Wyrm, Jörmungandr grew to an enormous size, although it's a little too big to fit in a lake as its body surrounds the world. Similarly, the great wolf Fenrir grew incredibly rapidly and something had to be done about that. The element of gold in the myth relates strongly to the stories of Fafnir, a dwarf whose lust for cursed gold and a ring eventually led to him turning into a dragon, eventually to be slain in the end by a great hero. The latest, and that I could find at least only, account of the Lagarfljót Wyrm to be photographed in any way was a sighting in 2012, which seems to show the surface of the water of Lagarfljót Lake being disturbed in such a way that a serpent-like creature could be swimming underneath. The farmer who filmed this video still attests to its authenticity, but no solid evidence to back this up or the true existence of the Lagarfljót Wyrm exists. For now at least, the supposed creature must remain a cryptid, and probably doesn't exist at all, which at least explains why it lives so long. Thank you very much for watching this video on the Lagarfljót Wyrm, and I do hope you're enjoying Worm Week 2022 on the Benji Thomas channel. 2 more videos left for this year's Worm Week, but as we've said before, we've excitingly been doing Worm Week alongside the University of Warsaw's Faculty of Biology this year, so if you're desperate for more worm content, go and check out the events they have running. They're making sure that some of what they do is in English as well as Polish.